978 star 8378 Nicole Cattaruzza. Alright, so, Miguel came down. Has something in the window, called Real Madrid, which I am unclear of. While he was here, I asked him about the local. Now, I saw he had on a navy pea coat with those silver buttons. I asked about that. Lou tells me that you can buy that at the local whatever, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So now, I asked him if he knew what the, I put up a video yesterday. There's, on Mad for Chicken, there's a sign that can, like, it just doesn't sit well with me. It really does not. But I don't know what exactly it means. Just makes me uncomfortable. Then there's the couple of doors down. Then there's across the street, there was the newspaper. So I said to him, I said, the three letters my children and I all have confirmed together while they're here, of language we've learned, is the three letters on the newspaper UFO. We know what the sounds are. We know they call that alphabet. I saw yesterday on some German thing, I was listening to a song in German about Himmel oder Hölle, that it was, which is heaven and hell. There was something about libere, which is Iber, I-B-E-R, with an L in front of it. Whatever, I was doing my thing that I love about symbols. And so those symbols I understand because that's what I've grown up on. But, so I said, but the rest in that yellow box on that newspaper, it had all these symbols I could not make sounds out of. I could not read with my eyes. Does not make a thought pattern for me because it was never presented. So there's still privacy somewhere for whatever those symbols belong to that I'm not privy to. The only three letters on that cover were the ones that looked like a English, I call it English, UFO. So I confirmed with my children to please point out the sounds that they're aware of on that. They all agreed UFO. Alex made a joke. I said, I'm not joking. I really need you to tell me for sure if you learn these symbols in your school, whether it be in Patchogue, in any of your public schools. And they all confirmed. After Alex joked at first, then he stopped and he said, no, Mom. He says, I can only read the UFO. I said, thank you. Same for myself. So we had unison conversation on that because in the area, even though they have that displayed, the front piece, I only know those three symbols on all of the symbols displayed. The pictures I do not know as well. So anyway, so Miguel came in. He was speaking. Now, in the German version, they said that UFO, that was Latin letters. Now, in a different special where they mentioned something about whatever, they said that those symbols were considered Arab, A-R-A-B. That gets confusing, all of these different sounds and people saying things, because I don't know for sure, and I don't have anybody to verify with that I'm comfortable with, for whatever. So, Miguel sat down, Louis and him. So I sat quietly, as I usually do. I let Louis lead his whatever. And so they had a nice conversation. Miguel is a higher respect level than we normally, we don't really have visitors to the house or that sit at the table any longer. Not when we're in a family type setting. So my father, Miguel, brought out a very nice dynamic. They had a very nice conversation. They were speaking about spirituality and all sorts of things. My dad was in his, I don't know if you say zone, realm. I've seen him before, but in rare instances. with whomever he is. There's a dynamic, but again, I don't bring out the best side of my father. I just don't. I never, maybe I did when I was little, I don't know, but there's a different dynamic when a man steps in a room that holds your respect and attention, and then the conversation is different between my father and he. So where my father was, they were having this one conversation and I stayed quiet and out of it, but there were, from my point of view, it fly on the wall or oversight of something. I did want to point out, to protect myself, about, because he asked something about experiment. And I said, here's the thing, if you listen to him, where I was delivered looks like there's seismic vibrations going on, and that the quantum is vibrating and it's pulling. So it causes almost like a mini diseased system, which becomes difficult to explain. I was like, however, I see here in a picture only, there are slits that are static and straight. And that could indicate a healthy system where your anatomy, you're not being shaken, your ions are not being pulled in radical ways. And because my father was talking about the afterlife, and people talk about these dying and coming back in this perfect realm, perfect world type of situation. I was like, that would be that would be almost like a slit. I was like, but where I am now and where I've been since birth, and Lewis is here with me, is there's some seismic vibrations. They've acknowledged, the humans, the earthlings, the whatever, on my AI. They put out there that there was some quantifiable experiment done that causes seismic vibrations or ripples. I call it gibber, Gibber, for Iber, and then there's a second B in between Iber with a J at the beginning of it. I don't know why. It's just where the seismic is at the moment to explain the unexplainable between benounced and unbeknownst realms of things. So I thanked Miguel for bringing that side of my father out. They sat next to one another. I sat at the end of the table, a little on the outskirts. The only thing I interjected was that photo when my father got to a wall where he cycles back because of however he's built. And then I just added my perspective, my outside perspective of what I've witnessed and what I know to be so, in my own whatever, which then they finished there. But Miguel even said, I said, you can always if you don't have deep people, it's hard to have deep conversations. I said, I bring out a different side of my father. I was like, my father's on a different linguistical whatever. I was like, your dynamic, your different energy coming to the table today brought out a different side of him that I greatly appreciate. I was like, so thank you for that. I was like, because I've been having this one way view with him, but not because I want to, just because I don't have active participants that I can view him in a professional light where he gets to be on what he knows and connect and really enter his zone of contribution and then receivership, and that cycle, which is very healthy and much needed. We've been kind of withheld out of that for, I don't know, some unbeknownst reason. I'm starting to think it might be for an outer instance. They touched briefly, they said something about a communist system, which I didn't really understand. I was like, now just break that down for me, because commune is a birthplace as a word. So then they were speaking of a system, and then a system within a system, and then how one system feels it's being oppressed by the other. I'm like, right, okay, that's about where quietly. That's about where I feel I am. I was like, right, see, but that's the whole thing, is that then there is a place for selection bias. At some point, there has to be. When you break it down to the most pure point, then you have to have some form of selection bias. I was like, and in order to maintain the slit or slat to the seismic vibration for that level of whatever. My father, before Miguel had entered the room, was sitting with his grandchildren and talking about intention, which Warner at Est and at Landmark was big on, about speaking from an intended point of view and then it will manifest. That is not always the case. Especially in my instance, I am in a whole different lateral parallel universe and purpose that is totally different. As much as I appreciate and I hear them in Landmark, I do not connect home runs with Landmark. It has never worked for me, not since I was 16. Even though I had in the city a special whatever, my first Landmark appearance ever. But then that evaporated somehow. So that was interesting because Lou's like, well, Nicole's already met this person that she still wants, and so she's already manifested it. So it's not like and then it got weird with like the intent and the manifestations, and I'm like, this sounds really human ear thing, but in a I don't really see how I'm going to connect to a home run here, Lou. But, so anyway, so it's star 1978, star 8378. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. Today is November, I believe it's 26. It's Friday, 2021. Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.